association, it's great to go out and start asking people, send it out and, say, what would you like to see, and then you're going to get stuff back. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I see over here, Sam says, hi, Mike, we're thinking about starting a podcast. What's the best format for a podcast? Interview, panel? I mean, Sam too. So it kind of helps to get a little context.
I was going to say, if you know Sam, it's probably he does an audio podcast because he's not really doesn't have the face for video. I don't think.
Stop. That's not true. That's not true.
Sam, I don't know if what's the best format for a podcast. Really, it's no. Sam is a very handsome man. We all know. I don't know what the best format is for a podcast. Obviously, some of them go crazy. Like the Tim Ferrisses of the world who interview people and they got a gazillion listeners, and then there's other panel ones. But like the Nerdist is one that's like popular and that's kind of a panel, I guess. I don't know.
It's so interesting. Yeah, it's so interesting to me because I listen to different podcasts for different reasons. I love Tim Ferriss's, but he goes between 1 and 3 hours. I mean, that's a long format show. And then you have other podcasts. Well, you know what? Joe Rogan does that too. And huge, really long shows. Actually, come to think of it, a lot of shows I listen to are kind of long.
Well, how about the one Hardcore History?
Oh my gosh.
I saw that guy speak, and his last one was 6 hours.
Yeah, I know.
6 hours.
Insane.
And he does it. He goes along and records them as he's like, he doesn't do the whole thing and then record it. He records it as he's learning about whatever the history is. So, and so what's interesting about that, he won't stop until he knows that he feels like, okay, I've covered it. So that's why he hours, and people love it.
And I think that, so I started doing this blog series this past week. Lauren Lemunyon, who's listening right now. Hi, Lauren. She does this 100-day challenge and continued it on to write a blog post every day. So I took the challenge, I started doing it, and I soon decided, like within 2 posts, that I wanted to do a series on the 5 senses of marketing. So it's like sensory marketing. And you can see I've been like making notes back here, but anybody who's listening to this later, just trust me, you can visualize a bunch of notes behind me. But anyway, it's interesting because when you talk about doing anything visual, you talk about how people, you can lose their attention very quickly. And so with video, you need movement immediately. You need intro text immediately. You need captions. You need all of this stuff if you're going to optimize for video online. But then when you talk about podcasts, when you talk about what you're listening to, when you talk about the auditory sense, it's different. It's different. You have a little bit of a different kind of thing that you can do there. So it's a different medium, and it provides a lot of different opportunities. And so.
Yeah. And they say that podcasting too is so intimate because you're actually entering someone's body. And it sounds weird, but you're actually going into their ear,
Yeah. Yeah. You're in their ear.
You wrote that in a whispering, where'd you write that in?
Yeah. It's like an influencer whispering into your ear. So when I put this on, when somebody's listening, it is like, we are in your ear. We're in your ear right now. And so, or you're, it's like kind of was it a voyeurism thing? Like you're kind of listening to something that, that's kind of cool too, when you're listening in on a conversation, But ads, I will click past an ad so fast. I will shut something down so fast if it's on video. But on a podcast, I have purchased more items because somebody I've been listening to on a podcast.
Yeah. And I saw that in your blog too about the Tim Ferriss, the mushroom coffee. And I bought it too. I bought stuff. Yeah. And
I still get it. I still get it.
Yeah. No, I don't anymore, but
yeah. Wow. And so Beth says, I listened to Game of Thrones on audiobooks, and each of those books are 40 plus hours. Long form is not weird for people who love the format. That's true. And especially if you're somebody.
I listened to all those books, and I have a pizza oven right out here. I built the pizza oven listening to the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
I look at it and I think about the Game of Thrones because it's that association. Well, you're right about the ads. Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about the advertising, because I think a lot of people think, so I have to have like 1 million subscribers to even start thinking about advertising. And so my guess is, based on you shaking your head already, that that's not necessarily true. So can you talk to me a little bit about some of the options that are available to people? Like what's are we thinking about advertising in too restrained of a way?
No, I think people need to open up about that, because like for associations, you already have a bunch of people who are trying to get at your audience. So those people will want to be in their ear, first of all, and then that's a huge one for associations. I think I've talked to them every time we do one with do a podcast series with an association. That's the thing. Get your advertisers that you're using at your events or whatever, set them out and put it as part of the sponsorship. Say, would you like to sponsor our podcast? Before you do anything, you can get it paid for, and you can actually make money off of it. That's the cool thing about it, with advertising.
Okay, wait. Let's slow down there. I want to talk about the making money part of it. Can we talk about that a little bit more? Because I would like to see how we can do that. I think that a lot of people are, and I know I have friends out there that have something against the term non-dues revenue, but let's just go there. So when you're starting to look at other ways to bring in money, especially for an association, and you're looking at your podcast, how does that work? I mean, is it like a typical sponsorship, or are there other options?
That's how I've kind of worked it with some associations. I would say to them, put it in your sponsorship packet for your next event when you have your annual event, and say, hey, and then we'll already budget it out beforehand. You'll know how much it costs, and then you can put some money on it and make money off it if you want, or just have it paid for.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good jump off point, because then they're already sending that out to the sponsors, and if someone's interested in it, then they got them on the hook, kind of to ask, to follow up with later if they want. I mean, that's kind of I think the easiest way to start out.
Yeah. And then you were talking to me about stitching in ads and that sort of thing, working with Ad Stitcher, right?
Yeah. So I also work with a startup, which I've been doing for the past year, called Knit, like knitting.
Oh, right. AdKnit.
And it's called AdKnit. AdKnit is where what it is basically just robots that can stitch ads in and out of your podcast. So and then you can record them. They can be any ads that you want. So on Knit, we host shows for free. Mm-hmm. The hosting's free, but then they take a revenue share of whatever they get in there. So right now, but it's just the three of us. And we have CNN, the NBA, Mike Tyson's podcast, all kinds of different stuff that you can go in there. And there's a marketplace, and you can buy ads, and there's no minimum. So it's kind of a cool way of putting ads in and out of podcasts. So if you think of somebody like Tim Ferriss, so he does the Me Undies or the coffee thing. So now that is baked in there for the rest of eternity, basically. So instead of it, Me Undies could buy, I want to buy your whole, all your shows for the last year and for the year. And then you can pull them in and out, and he can record them, whatever, but they can come in and out. So he's constantly making money from his catalog of shows.
So do you have to have Tim Ferriss numbers though, in order to do something like that? You
don't. You really don't. We as a startup are trying to obviously get the bigger shows, and it has worked. I mean, like the David Axelrod and stuff. They talked about where, I don't remember, Mark Maron interviewed President Obama, and there was one ad in there. So that ad is now in there forever, basically, with the company that they went with. So this is new. This is a new system. We're the only company that does it. I think we're the only company that I've heard of that has actual robots doing it. So we have a system that you can just upload. So if you put this show up there, you would break it into three files.
Cool.
So then then the system puts ads in and out. So
very nice.
Yeah.
So with the advertising, we had this really great question that came in just a second ago from Beth Brodowski, and I have invited her to jump on. Here she is. Hey, Beth.
Hey, how are you?
Great. I'm so glad that you're on. Beth, do you mind asking your question directly of Mike? Because I know this is exciting.
Hey, hi, Mike. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So as KiKi said before, I'm not an association, but I am a longtime podcaster. And so one of the questions I have is, when your numbers aren't huge, like as I'm sure a lot of associations might not be, how are people sort of quantifying the value of that? Because in the, sort of traditional space, it's, you need 10,000 downloads a week in order to get advertise on you, that kind of a thing. So what are people doing to demonstrate value or to pitch that as value to potential advertisers?
Well, you can have coupon code kind of a thing in there to see how many people are really jumping on it. I mean, that's an easy way, or a landing page, having them go and enter, the same old stuff that we've all done in the internet age of getting people to sign up for your email list or whatever, coming on an actual landing page. That's one way. It's a great way to promote events and stuff for conferences, to go on your podcast, to say you could go out to them. I mean, it's hard to say. It's getting better and better. Actually, Apple is putting a lot more money now into podcasting. I actually was at the podcast movement, and I had drinks with a bunch of guys from Apple, and they were like, "Yeah, we're starting to go into this more. Like, we're pushing." It's funny that they are the main the main hub for podcasting, but
right.
It's in Philadelphia next year, so you can come visit me.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I will. It's a really great conference. I recommend that to anybody.
I haven't been yet, but it's going to be local, so I have to go. I guess part of what my question was, so say, I have a podcast. How does somebody figure out what an advertiser should pay for something, when it's not as simple as, it's X rate, we have this amount of downloads. So here, I mean, I've heard a lot of people get there, we have 10,000 downloads. So this is our sort of, cost per impression rate, which is sort of an old school version of figuring out marketing. So I guess that's what I'm wondering is that if you're say I have a podcast and I want to pitch sponsorship to an advertiser, I have no idea how you would even say.
Okay.
I think what Richard said in here in the thing is exactly the answer.
Yes.
I mean, it's not about, it's just it's the right audience for you.
Let me say,
oh, wonderful, Richard.
100%. And let me just, for people who are listening later, and hi, Tyler Davidson. Yes, this is, we definitely want to say hi to Tyler from Meetings Today magazine. Hello, hello. So Richard says, as VP of sales, I can tell you it's not about the numbers. It's about the right audience. If your audience are the people I want to reach, I'll pay. And that is such an interesting comment, because it is that niche audience. If you have a niche audience and you want to, I hate this cliche, but, rise above the noise, and you want to stick out, getting into people's ears, being that intimate voice, whether it is producing content, producing a podcast yourself, or maybe even being mentioned on something like Association Chat, where people get to know, what your brand is all about. Hearing that week after week after week from somebody you trust, even if they know it's a sponsored name, has to be a good thing, right? I mean, where do you get that?
Yeah. I had a funny little thing that we had with AdNet. We had a guy call in. He was listening to the Mike Tyson show, and he was mowing his lawn, and he called in. He said he was listening to it, and he was mowing his lawn in Alabaster, Alabama. He's out there, and he said, I want to be on, I can't do a Southern accent, but he wanted to be on the show, on Mike Tyson's show. So we can actually, he has a trucking company, so we can geographically put ads in shows. So if you were in Alabaster, Alabama, listening to it, that ad would only pop up there when you download it. So it's kind of interesting.
Wow.
So he got to be on the show. And then we asked him, how much do you want to spend? He says, I got $50 for this, but he actually got on the show. So it's interesting how it's all kind of evolving. And I actually like to tell that story only for someone like you, Beth, like that you could actually say that story. Like, it's it's really about, if that advertiser wants to get at that audience. I mean, other Mike Tyson lovers, I don't know. It's kind of interesting just how it all.
Interesting. Well, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Beth. I'm going to kick you off now. Bye. Thanks for coming on. So that was awesome. And Sam says, is there a different model for B2B versus B2C? Is it different when you're reaching out to businesses versus, reaching out to customers?
I don't know. That's a good question. I really don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
I think that No, so let me walk through this. So like if Beth and I decide that we are going to create a podcast together, and it is the KiKi and Beth show, and we have a limited but a dedicated few who listen to us every week on our podcast, and we come to you and we say, yeah, we want to we want to open up our podcast to advertisers and that kind of thing. We want to make some money. So Mike, what do we need to do first?